Right, morning everybody. Um, my name is Phil Ascough. I'm the chair of the LSIP, which hopefully you can see on that nice slide. Um, we've just got a session here today. We'll tell you what's going to happen with it, the reasons behind it. But first, a little bit of background. The LSIP, Hull and East Yorkshire LSIP, was approved in August 2023. There was a lot of work before that to set things up. Our role, just to summarize that, is to lead the efforts to tackle skills gaps and to support training providers so they can meet the needs of businesses in our region. Um, we report to Skills England. We were set up by Skills England through the Chamber. We represent employers in Hull and East Yorkshire, and the Chamber is the employer representative body, but we're not necessarily tied to them. We're here as the link for the employers. We create our own agenda really in partnership with the employers and with input from the combined authority. We're working towards joint ownership with the combined authority now as we prepare for the next version of the LSIP. The combined authority has produced its own local growth plan, which hopefully you saw during the consultation process. If you haven't, we can get that to you so you can have a look at it. Our role is to ensure that the details of LSIP 2 meet the needs of that document. We have a small team of 3 people. As chair, well, I was invited to take on the role of chair because of my long-term involvement with the Chamber and with other stakeholders. Primarily, that's been as a journalist and media and PR consultant. Building networks, just chasing people down, really, finding out how you get people together. The people who do the real work are Hannah Crooks and Rod Chambers. Hannah is the project lead. Rod is the project manager. They put in a huge amount of effort and expertise, and never more so than over the last few months, with countless intensive meetings with the combined authorities representatives to get the LSIP 2 proposal ready to send to Skills England. And we expect that to happen tomorrow. This event has been organised so Hannah and Rod can brief you about our progress. I think it's the first webinar we've had, but it's part of a series of forums, workshops and surveys, all of which have generated valuable feedback in terms of quality and quantity. Some good attendance numbers across all of that as well. And we're looking for more of that today. You can use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to submit questions, which we will get to later on. And if we run out of time before dealing with them, then we'll address them afterwards. So for now, thanks for joining. I hope you find it helpful, and I'll hand over to Rod to kick things off. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, morning everyone. Yeah, as Phil says, I'm Rod Chambers. I'm the project manager for Hull and East Yorkshire Local Skills Improvement Plan. I've got a number of slides just to take you through, which is very much to sort of bring people up to speed, particularly those that haven't been familiar or been working with us on the journey so far. It's always helpful to have that background. And after I've finished, Hannah will come in and with a big focus on what we're doing next. So hope this is a helpful story for our participants. I think we had about over 130, 40 registered. I think we're showing about 112 so far, so people may join, but it's an excellent turnout. So thank you for joining us today. As Phil said, originally it was a Department for Education Commission. As we now know, it's moving to DWP, and within that, it's the Skills England who have the ownership of the LSIP. It was given to us to lead through the Chamber, which is the employer representative body for this area. So Hull and East Yorkshire currently is one of 39 around the country, around England. And when that was launched, we had funding which we put into some of the colleges and independents locally. So we were very pleased to be able to put some funding into our training providers, which was particularly around digital developments. As a result of the research that was done in the early days, a number of themes and sectors emerge, which I'll just go through with you now. So next slide, please, Hannah. So you'll be familiar with these for those that have been on the journey with us. So the research and the feedback that we had from employers particularly was for us to look at these particular themes. So skills gaps, work readiness, recruitment, digital and careers IAG. So just very quickly on each of those, and we've been doing some work on each of them since they were introduced. Recruitment, we know that there's a challenge and continues to be a challenge to get people into the training space, particularly into the college environments, but also schools and other training organisations. And that's because we know that often the rewards for staying doing the work can be greater than teaching it. So we have to be a bit more creative about how we can look at recruiting people into the training environment. So there's work being going on with that to look at how we can do things a bit differently. And that involves perhaps looking at how we can take on people that have finished their commission in the armed forces. And that's been successful with a number of training organisations. The theme around accessibility, a couple of strands to that. One is about making sure that people know where to go for information relating to things like funding and policies. So we have developed the LSIP website, which is our first phase. And in the next month or two, we'll be developing that even further. So that's going to be very helpful in terms of having our knowledge and information in one place. And the other plank to accessibility is to make sure that we don't leave behind those that are finding it difficult sometimes to engage with the labour market, those that perhaps have special educational needs. We've been doing a lot of work to ensure that where there is good practice, particularly amongst our employer network, that there is some good practice that can be shared about how we can offer things like work experience to those with special educational needs. That's been really successful. Careers IAG, information, advice and guidance. Again, the feedback from employers originally was to say there's a need to make sure that the information, advice and guidance that is given is reflecting what the future looks like for the region, particularly with some of the investments that are coming in up and down that golden thread of the Humber, things like the hydrogen manufacturing, carbon capture, offshore and other activities. So we'll start to see more of that, I think, in the next phase of the LSIP, where we explore more of that whole sectors around ports and logistics and energy. So we want to make sure that the careers, information, advice and guidance that's been offered does reflect those opportunities. So working closely with colleagues around that. Work readiness, this has been a big focus for us. We have been working with colleagues in the Combined Authority to put together a framework which supports employability skills passports. Some of those are already in existence, but there's more work to do where we can encourage training organisations, schools and other education establishments to produce a version of a passport that allows young people particularly to be able to demonstrate and provide evidence for some of those skills that are needed for the workplace. So things like communication, resilience, timekeeping, the sort of skills that are needed that employers continue to tell us are needed still for getting into the place of work. So a lot of work to do. We're hoping later in the year, ready for the next term, academic term, an academic year, that we will have the framework in place to support that. So we'll be keeping in touch with you around that. Digital and net zero has been a constant cross-cutting theme area for us across all the other themes and sectors. And again, with the backing of some of the funding that came along, we've seen some great investment going into the colleges, allowing young people particularly to get the skills perhaps virtually, where they don't need to go out on the site, but they can get some of those experiences in the classroom. And net zero, again, we know the importance of that across all of our themes and our sectors. So we are seeing more of that, I think, being built into all the teaching and all the subjects and curriculum generally, rather than being specific. But again, there's more work to do around that in the next phase. And of course, skills gaps, we continue to make sure that we understand where those gaps are. We've done a lot to ensure that the needs of employers have been put into the curriculum planning, put into the subject matter, and it's an ongoing challenge that we face to make sure that those skills are recognised and those gaps are filled ready for the future. So those have been the themes that we've been working on. Next slide, please, Hannah. So along with the themes, we were asked to look at certain targets. So this is LSIP first version 1.0. The targets that, sorry, the sectors that came through as important for us to look at within Hull and East Yorkshire were these on the screen. So health and social care, agri-skills, construction, manufacturing and engineering construction. And what's been really great is that we've had involvement from employers in each of those sectors, that they've also been working closely with the training organisations that have specialisms perhaps in some of those areas. For instance, on the agri-skills, we know we've got a great partnership with Bishop Burton College, and we've been doing some work with them through our sector groups, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So those continue to be important sectors for us to keep focusing on and supporting. So even as we head into the next version of LSIP and we continue with our work with the combined authority, we want to make sure that those sectors continue to receive attention. I think we know also that with some of these sectors that there are challenges in trying to explain, particularly to young people looking to get into work, what sits behind some of those headlines, what opportunities are there in construction, for instance, or health and social care. Because I think often it's, as we know from the feedback that we've had, there is a lack of appreciation and understanding about some of the roles that are available to people. So I'll say a bit more about those in coming slides. So next slide, Hannah. One of the ways that we help support the sectors is that we have particular focuses on sectors from time to time. This is an example where we pull together a sector. It's also putting together the forum that we have and also our relationship with the educators. So in this case, this was taken from the Chamber magazine, which is the business intelligence magazine, and that followed a forum that we held at the end of last year. This was at Hull University, and we focused on the health and social care sector. We had some great participation and attendance at that forum. I think we had about 100 people come along to the university. We brought together employers, we brought together industry bodies and other training providers. Got some great feedback from people that were there, looking at things like the training ambulance, the virtual environment for working in hospitals, heard about the apprenticeship program that the universities were doing, and also we had speakers from Skills for Care talking about the challenges and opportunities in the care system. So I think that's a really good example of where, with the work of the LSIP, bringing together the employer, the training provider, the forum, and reporting that in one place, I think it really sort of brings it to life. So that's one example of what we've done during the last 12 months. Thank you, Hannah. Moving on, that's it, great, okay. And similarly, we had an event at Sewell in Hull. This is a focus obviously on construction. We had some fantastic messages to get across on that day. This is where we saw the new digital academy at Sewell that was being opened. So our event was coinciding with the time when they were opening their academy. We were able to bring together school representatives, industry bodies, training providers, and look at how they're really using digital to promote their industry, particularly on the use of QR on wall plaques. We had a robotic dog in the room. We had young people using the iPads, and it blew us away, I think, in terms of some of the opportunities around the digital training that can be used in an environment like this. So a big focus on construction. And also at that event, we heard from colleagues in the armed forces and the cadets who were talking about the opportunities for recruitment, particularly for young people who are developing those skills around the sort of work readiness type skills, and how they can come into the world of work. A great fact was, I think, of all the people that go through the cadet training in the armed forces, 80% of them move into non-armed forces careers. So a big opportunity for employers to recruit from that base. Thank you, Hannah. So these are the reasons how we the ways in which we keep in touch with our network, sector group meetings. So for each of the sectors that we talked about or I talked about earlier, we have every 6 weeks or 2 months some sector groups that bring together representatives from those sectors, including employers, industry bodies, and colleges and other training providers. So, for instance, in the space of construction, we would get attendance from the Construction Industry Training Board. So we hear about what's happening nationally, and of course we can feed back into them to help influence some of their policies and some of their funding opportunities. Quarterly forums we just talked about. In fact, sector group meetings, we've got 4 planned tomorrow for those sectors I've been talking about. So if you're not registered or you're not attending and you'd like to, get in touch with us after this session, and we can extend invitations to join those meetings online tomorrow during the day for those sectors. So let us know if you're interested in joining those. Quarterly forum, we just established the next date for the one in April, which is the 20th of April, Monday the 20th of April. That's going to be at the Hull Guildhall. And we'll send some details out following this webinar today, so you've got all the details about what's going to be happening there. We attend and we promote at skills and careers events. I was at one last month, I think, over at Wakefield, which was a City and Guilds event. Really sort of big focus there on DWP and the work that they're doing, and some of the changes to the apprenticeship program. So really good that we as an organisation participate in that, but also we get feedback. Roundtable focus groups back in January, we held some of those at Bishop Burton College. This is where we get our stakeholders together in one room, and we were just testing some of the findings from the online survey that came through previously. So looking at all those different ways about keeping in touch and sharing, really important to us, and it just starts to build a picture, and it helps inform what's going to be happening for the next phase of the LSIP. Thanks, Hannah. The last forum that we had, this was at the MKM Stadium. We had about 100 guests, and we were pleased to be able to promote things like the changes that were happening to the work experience program. There's a modern work experience program that's just been launched through the government. So we were keen to sort of share the details of that and ensure that employers can engage with it. We heard locally also about from Humber Learning Consortium that have been developing a desktop escape room product, which is fantastic. And our colleagues there were reaching out to make sure that other organisations can get involved with it and support it. And we had a great response to that. And because we were at the MKM Stadium, we also had a great presentation from colleagues in the Tigers Trust and the work that they're doing locally. So yeah, one of our events in action there. Thank you. Hannah? So I mentioned the roundtables. I mentioned the survey that we did beginning of the year. The survey went out. I think we had about 150 responses from employers of different sizes across the region. Some quick insights here. 75% of employers still struggling to recruit. A bit of a focus on that next bullet point on the skills needed to get into work. We were asking about what are the most important things in the next 2 to 3 years, and some of the feedback we had was around that leadership, digital and sustainability, because of the recognition that young people particularly are very interested in organisations that have policies and values around these things. And interestingly, a lot of employers saying digital is critical, but very few have a strategy in place. So hopefully over the next year or two, we can help develop some of that strategy. Thanks, Hannah. 43% of employers have a net zero strategy. That's increasingly important because as employers put bids in for investment for more of what the organisation is doing about its journey towards net zero. Make sure I'm still connected. 79% of employers have links with our local training providers, which is fantastic. And really pleasingly that there's a big confidence percentage there in further education readiness to support employer needs. Thanks, Hannah. So a bit of a reminder what employers are looking for. So as the LSIP, and we're here for the employer as a representative body, that curriculum co-design, really important when we're looking at what training providers are looking to develop in their next academic year. So that co-design relationship with employees is really important. Quite a shift to role-specific training rather than generic or general training. The next bullet on there about the proof of competency, that supports the work that we're doing with the employability skills passport. Collaboration is key. And we also want to make sure that young people have a better knowledge of business, and that's going to be done through the Modern Work Experience programme. And again, employers want to see work-ready employees. So I hope that's a helpful sort of update and background and journey so far. And I think I'm handing over to Hannah to, as a hopefully helpful segue into the next section. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Hannah Crooks and I'm the lead for the Hull and East Yorkshire LSIP programme. And I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview now as to what we've been doing to develop the new LSIP, so Hey LSIP 2.0 as we're calling it, and a bit of an update as to the information that's been coming through that's led us to draw the conclusions that we have. So we are approaching the first submission deadline for the new LSIP, and we're looking at building on the success of the current programme across England. So that's not just for us, but also with all the other ERBs that we're working with. And we're using the latest insights and intelligence to shape the next phase. Our aim is to support a skilled and productive and future-ready workforce that benefits our local economy. So just to give you a bit of an update in terms of the statutory guidance, whilst we're developing this new LSIP, we do have to adhere to the guidance that's been developed and circulated by Skills England. And the key things that we are looking at is obviously making sure that the LSIP continues to be employer-led, that we consider local and national strategies, such as the Hull and East Yorkshire's local growth plan and also the Get Hull and East Yorkshire working plan that's currently being developed by the combined authority, and also on a national perspective looking at things like the industrial strategy. We're utilising robust labour market evidence. So for instance, we're looking at occupational intelligence, vacancy pressures, vacancy demand against job seeker interest. And we've also broken that down in particular sectors at the same time, which will be more evident within the actual final LSIP that's submitted. We need to identify clear priorities for technical education, weighing up what employers want and what we also need to help our local economy grow. And we need to develop clear actions for our local providers, stakeholders, and also the business community to address the priorities that have been identified as part of LSIP 2.0. And we'll look at creating mechanisms where we work together, monitor against clear KPIs, and make sure we are responsive and agile to the ever-changing needs that businesses are facing. So with the development of the new LSIP, we are we're analysing a wide range of data from a number of different sources. We're continuing our engagement with employers, providers and stakeholders. And we've also reviewed research that has been relevant to Hull and East Yorkshire at the same time. And all this has come together to help develop the new LSIP. So in relation to data, this is what you can see on the screen now. These are just examples of data sources that we've been utilising. And so where it mentions Adzuna, that's the labour market information tool that we have been utilising. So it's similar for those of you that might be familiar with Lightcast, it's similar to that. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details now purely because of time, but the overall labour market evidence for Hull and East Yorkshire indicates strong employer demand across several sectors, particularly in energy, manufacturing, ports and logistics, and agri-food and agri-tech. And the region demonstrates higher vacancy pressures than national averages, with job adverts representing a greater share of employment than in Great Britain overall, which is suggesting persistent recruitment challenges and tight labour market conditions in several industries. Across sectors, we are noticing that the region is facing a combination of skill shortages in technical and engineering roles, demand for higher level and hybrid skills linked to digitisation and net zero. We're noticing an ageing workforce and recruitment challenges, and these are particularly apparent in sectors such as health and social care and construction. And we need to strengthen vocational pathways and employer-aligned training. And these trends are particularly evident in the region's priority sectors as part of the sector framework that's been defined by the Combined Authority, which I will come on to in a bit more detail a bit later. In relation to Ipsos, they published some reports back in September 2025, and it was looking at the net increase in jobs expected in Hull and East Yorkshire, taking us up to 2035. Also looking at how sectors such as health and social care are expected to source 7,000 new jobs in Hull and East Yorkshire by 2035, which is the largest net increase of all industries. Support service sectors are also expected to grow. We're seeing modest job growth is also expected in professional, accommodation and food and transport and storage industries. Several sectors in Hull and East Yorkshire are projected to stagnate over the coming decade in terms of jobs growth. And the manufacturing sector is projected to have 3,000 less jobs, but we need to note with that obviously with ever-changing technologies, the skills requirements are going to be ever-changing. There are likely also to be vacancies across all occupations over the coming decade, even those set to decline to replace those who retire or change jobs. When we look at the local skills dashboard, that's a tool that's been developed by Skills England and provides data on the number of active businesses, business growth, sectors that are dominating our local area, top projected growth occupations from now until 2025, which interestingly is showing customer service occupations, other managers and proprietors, business, media and public service professionals, protective service occupations and health and social care service occupations, as well as also further education achievement rates. We then utilise NOMIS to actually provide us information with regards to the population, the workforce, claimant counts, economic activity and the major employment sectors within the region. And then where I've mentioned Metro Dynamics, that comes into the work being conducted by the Combined Authority, which has helped determine the priority sectors, which I'll come on to later on. So in terms of engagement, it's just examples of who we've been engaging with during this process. So we've got employers, employer representative bodies, sector representative bodies, stakeholders, and also our providers. We've created opportunities for engagement via various different means, as Rod has already alluded to. We've had our forums, sector working groups, which have enabled us to bring together all these different partners. We've also had one-to-one opportunities, and obviously our survey was also launched in November last year, and that was running up until February to help provide additional insights that can support the development of LSIP 2.0. We're also grateful to local employers and representative organisations that have created further opportunities for us to reach with even more businesses within their sectors, and this has particularly been apparent across the construction, health and social care sectors. We've also continued to attend the Humber Principals Group, which helps us engage regularly with our local colleges, and also the Yorkshire Learning Provider Network that has helped us reach out to independent training providers, all of whom are key to ensuring we have the right and necessary provision available for all our employers. Now, in terms of research, these are just screenshots of some of the reports that we've been looking into. There are more beyond this, but we have made sure that we've taken into consideration different sector representative organisations and the information they provided us with to actually support the latest development, giving us insights of what they feel are the projected workforce requirements for the local area, and also understanding how their skills needs are expected to change over the coming years. As a reminder, the new LSIP is again going to be a 3-year plan. So trying to get that understanding of what's going to be happening within the different industries over the 3 years is essential. And for some reason, There we go. Right, and the local growth plan that I've mentioned earlier. So the local growth plan has been developed by the combined authority, and it sets out a clear 10-year economic strategy for Hull and East Yorkshire. Now, it's structured around four big plays, which are powering our industrial future, backing local business, building skills and good work, connecting and enabling growth. And as part of this, they've developed a sector framework, and these have been broken down by a growth driving, growth potential, and essential and growth enabling sectors. And the growth enabling are essential to our local economy. So what you can see on the screen is just a breakdown of how that sector framework's being developed. So as we develop this new LSIP, we will obviously be taking consideration to the sectors within that, whilst also making sure that the employer voice is at the forefront of the work that we are doing. So with LSIPs being employer-led, obviously taken into consideration that employer feedback is essential. And one of the key points that we need to know is that similar challenges are existing across all sectors. They're not just necessarily restricted to one sector. And we also need to understand that core challenges that are being experienced, they're not sector specific. They do appear to be system-wide. So evidence shows we're facing both immediate recruitment pressures and longer-term structural challenges across the economy. In sectors like construction, there is significant demand across all levels, from managerial and technical roles to skilled trades and site-based positions. At the same time, we're seeing a decline in key occupations such as electricians, alongside apprenticeship numbers that are too low to sustain the workforce. These issues are not isolated. Similar shortages exist across engineering, manufacturing, health and social care, digital and professional services. Overall, employers are consistently struggling to fill technical specialist and middle management roles. A number of common themes are emerging across all sectors, and we've been hearing employers say they don't necessarily identify their organisation in one particular sector, or they have job roles within their organisations that are not necessarily sector specific. There are also clear digital skills gaps at every level within the workforce. And also, as we move towards a net zero economy, carbon literacy and sustainability related skills are becoming increasingly more important. Employers are also placing strong emphasis on transferable skills and work ready behaviours. However, there are practical barriers, particularly for SMEs, including limited time to train staff, difficulties accessing funding, and challenges navigating apprenticeship systems. In addition to workforce shortages, there are wider system level challenges. There is often a mismatch between what employers need and what local training provision delivers. We're also seeing gaps in specific apprenticeship areas, slower progress in further education outcomes compared to national trends, and ongoing barriers around maths and English. For rural areas in particular, access to jobs and training remains a significant issue. In terms of key occupational shortages, employers have identified shortages across a wide range of occupations, including engineering, technical roles, skilled trades, and digital and IT positions, and finance. There are also significant gaps in health and social care, education and training, and professional services. In addition, there is strong demand for management and project leadership roles, as well as a number of specialist niche occupations. It's also important to note that many roles cut across sectors, meaning a more flexible cross-sector approach is needed. And when we look at workforce development, the main barriers are practical rather than attitudinal. The biggest issue is time. Many employers simply cannot release staff due to operational pressures and workforce shortages. Cost is also another major factor, including not just course fees, but also the cost of backfilling roles and lost productivity. And recruitment challenges also play a role, as employers rely heavily on existing staff, leaving little capacity for training. In summary, the challenge is not necessarily lack of awareness of skills provision available, it's more and employers understand their skills needs. The real issues are capacity, affordability, and how well the system aligns with those needs. There is a clear demand for more flexible and modular training, strong collaboration between employers and providers, and better alignment overall. And looking ahead, the focus needs to be on building not just technical skills, but also leadership and digital capability to support ongoing economic and technological change. So some of the barriers that we are seeing to upskilling, so talking a little bit more from what I've just mentioned, the main barriers are practical and focusing primarily around time constraints, cost and backfilling roles, rigid training structures, access issues, especially in rural areas. But that's not just on the transport side, that's also being able to access provision locally, because in some cases there are courses that employers are requiring that are not necessarily available locally. So how does this create LSIP 2.0? Now, the table that you can see on the screen on the top row, these are the key sections that we have to include as part of the statutory guidance within the new LSIP. So we've got the strategic and economic context, part one, which demonstrates our local skills needs, part two, which is referring to the actions and changes needed. Then the annexes provide that additional information that we need that won't necessarily fit in with the whole LSIP report. Within the strategic and economic context, we've not only considered the priorities for Hull and East Yorkshire, but we've also considered the Humber, as we've recognised the importance of the Humber to our economy. So we've taken into account the likes of the Humber Economic Strategy and the Humber Freeport. For our local skills needs, our priorities can be summarised as a demand-led skills system aligned to growth, better preparation for employment, a capable and responsive education system, and a more coordinated and accessible skills ecosystem. We can achieve this by strengthening technical skills pipelines, accelerating digital capability across our local economy, build net zero and sustainability skills across our workforce, strengthen leadership, management and workforce planning capability. Now, within Annex A, this is where there'll be more granular detail with regards to specific skills needs that we are going to be requiring moving forward, and this will go down to the levels of SIC and SOC codes, which I know aren't necessarily relevant to everybody, or not everybody looks at the SIC and SOC codes, but this is a way that Skills England actually analyse and compare all LSIPs across England. And within that, we will be looking at specific occupations within those sectors that are aligned with the Combined Authorities sector framework. Annex B is effectively the most crucial document. It is the roadmap to delivery. Now, this will be a live document that we can change to better support employer needs over the 3-year period. And this will help identify the lead organisations who are responsible for driving the activity forward, supporting partners, other organisations or stakeholders that need to be involved to help us achieve our priorities. Looking also at timescales, expected outcomes, and monitoring and measurement, so that we can track our progress in delivering LSIP 2.0. This will enable all partners to have a clear understanding of their roles in delivering the LSIP recommendations. And then with Annex C, this provides the background and methodology of how we've developed and drawn the conclusions within LSIP 2.0. And as part of this, we have to demonstrate how we've aligned with the statutory guidance, consider the skills needed for jobs that support net zero targets, climate change, adaptation, and other environmental goals and requirements, and how equality considerations have been taken into consideration at the same time. So bringing all this information together, this has helped determine our priority themes for LSIP 2.0 of technical skills, preparation for working life, educational workforce, and knowledge point. So what will we be focusing on as part of these key themes? So with technical skills, there'll be a strong focus on advanced digital capabilities and net zero sustainability skills requirements, whilst looking at the pan-sector approach. Where we mention key sectors, these relate to the key sectors outlined in the sector framework as part of the local growth plan. However, with the technical skills, we need to look at the leadership and management aspect to help manage digital net zero capabilities across the workforce. With preparation for working life, here we'll build upon the work of our current LSIP relating to employability skills and behaviours, careers guidance and accessibility, but looking at more specifics around meaningful work experience. For those who attended our last forum, you will have heard about the Modern Work Experience programme, for example. Also within this, there'll be digital and financial literacy and specific employability skills such as communication, teamwork, and resilience and adaptability, particularly essential due to the ever-changing environments we now operate in. Addressing skills needs within the educational workforce is critical to ensuring our training and education systems can respond effectively to employer demand, to equip local people with the skills required to access and sustain employment. Educators, trainers, and curriculum leaders must themselves have up-to-date industry knowledge, technical expertise, and strong employer links. This includes continuous professional development, exposure to current workplace practices, and collaboration with businesses to co-design relevant provision. By investing in the capability and capacity of our educational workforce, we create a responsive, future-focused system that aligns learning with labour market needs and supports local people into meaningful, sustainable work. The approach must also recognise the vital importance of administration support staff within post-16 settings, whose expertise underpins learner recruitment, funding compliance, data management, careers guidance, coordination, and employer engagement activity. Their skills ensures that systems run efficiently and that learners can successfully access and progress through provision. In addition, strengthening the early years workforce is essential to building strong foundations for future skills development. Early years practitioners play a pivotal role in shaping language, communication, social development, and early cognitive skills, all of which contribute to long-term educational attainment and employability. With regards to knowledge point, employers consistently call for a single centralised hub, which we're obviously pleased within the current LSIP. We developed LSIP, the Hey LSIP website, and this, has helped start putting all the information that we need in one place to support employers. However, we do recognise that we can build on this further because many businesses are still reporting that the current landscape is fragmented, difficult to navigate, and constantly changing, with information spread across multiple providers, agencies, and platforms. As the functions of the combined authority are realised, the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce, as a designated employer representative body, will collaboratively identify how we can further build on this work with a coordinated hub. The intention would be to simplify access to local and regional provision, funding opportunities, apprenticeship pathways, and upskilling programmes, whilst preventing duplication. Beyond training provision, employers have also highlighted the need for consolidated guidance on wider issues impacting business performance and future planning, including sustainability, net zero commitments, digital transformation, emerging technologies, and other policies and strategies coming out at both local and national level. As these agendas increasingly shape workforce requirements and operational models, businesses require timely, practical, and concise information to adapt and remain competitive. So whilst we're in the process of developing our roadmap, which will be done collaboratively with the combined authority and also key essential stakeholders across the local area, here we're just looking at some simple wins that can help actually support the delivery of LSIP 2.0. We need to not overcomplicate and ensure we use language understood by all. We need to be collaboratively, stop working in silos, communicate and share best practice. We can be creative and look at best practice and how we can adapt these examples across multiple sectors. We want to look at how we can strengthen business support and work more closely together. We need to continue to be agile. Let's adapt how we need to respond to employer needs when we need to. We want to ensure continuous feeding of information from employers throughout this process of delivery of LSIP 2.0 so that we can respond effectively. And we also want to enable the promotion of sector champions to help raise awareness of opportunities that are available with it across all different sectors. So what can you do? You can tell us about some of the work that you're doing already that you feel could actually help deliver some of the priorities that we're seeing within LSIP 2.0. Rod obviously mentioned earlier with regards to our sector working groups. Now, these will be changed in some way, shape or form as we move forward with the priorities of LSIP 2.0, but we do urge you to get involved where possible. Also, are your organisations able to offer placements? Now, these could be work experience placements, they could be T-level placements. Obviously, we need more employers to get on board. There's also the aspect of allowing education providers into your workplace to support their CPD and ensure our educational workforce are equipped with industry knowledge. So please do get in touch if you can help or want to be involved. So we'll now move on to the Q&A. So I have seen that some questions have been appearing into the chat. I don't, is Rod and Phil still there? So I've actually lost everybody on my screen now, so
Still here, Hannah?
brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
So just looking at the questions in the chat. So somebody anonymous though, interested in being part of the health and social care sector skill events. If you could send me an email with your details, I can arrange for that, the details to be sent across to you. And also the same for Joanne. So then we've got a question. A lot of narrative to support the slides. How can we get access to the detail being given verbally? The LSIP report is going to our LSIP board this afternoon. Now, this is a substantive draft that we are due to be submitting to Skills England at the end of the week. It needs to go via our LSIP board before we can actually share that information more widely. And also it does need to be approved by Secretary of State. But what I will do is ensure that these slides are available after the event. And also in terms of the narrative, I can make sure that that information is made available as well. Then we've got a comment for preparation for work communication may be too wide and we need to include literacy and ESOL. Apologies that that didn't come through in my presentation. ESOL is referenced within the new LSIP report. And I know I've already had that feedback to make sure it's there. And then the thing, like with the LSIP website, with that we have actually got that ESOL facility on there as well.
I think we're making more use of the technology on the website for translation as well, Hannah, aren't we? I think we're
Yeah.
looking at tools to ensure that there's that instant and clear translation opportunity.
Exactly. So I think just scanning through, I think I've answered all the specific questions that were there and everyone's come on. Another one's just come through about a lot of narrative about young people, which is needed, but what about older people? They are very much part of the LSIP program. Apologies if it's come across that it's more focused on young people. It isn't. The whole purpose of the LSIP is that it is post 16 and that's going up towards people that are hitting retirement as well. It is incorporated into the main LSIP report that is open to everybody, not just specifically younger people. I think a hand's gone up there as well.
I can see a hand, I can't see who it's attributed to, unfortunately.
Oh, David's picked up on that one in the question. Right. Is there any support or guidance from LSIP for providers who have lost funding and are facing redundancies? It hasn't, I'll be honest, it hasn't specifically come through within the actual LSIP report, but as we are developing the roadmap, I know that that is particular work that's coming through from DWP, so it will be incorporated into that as well. Then we've got larger national providers with professional bid writing terms consistently outcompete smaller local providers, even where those local providers have deeper employer networks and community knowledge. Is the LSIP looking for recommended or influenced procurement practices that level the playing field? Rod, have you got any thoughts on that one?
I think it's a good point for us to take away, actually. I think definitely. And I think as part of our journey that we'll be on with our colleagues in the combined authority, I think we need to look at that, definitely.
Brilliant. I think that's gone through all the questions. I'll just give people a few more minutes if they've got any other questions. Otherwise, I will pass over to Phil again to close the session.
I'll just add on that question about support or guidance for providers who've lost funding and are facing redundancies. We have spoken to a couple of local MPs about that, just to make sure they're aware of the issues. And I mean, they're picking it up and looking into it. So it's not something we're going to overlook. And there was something on there about older workers as well, and this is something we specifically discussed with Bethany at Skills England, at Skills for Care, and I think that's going to be something that we revisit.
It's another area where we're seeing some good practice, I think, as well, Phil, talking to some employers where they have got older workers and with younger ones coming in about the role of the older workers being mentors and helping hand. I think particularly around some of the work, the employability skills, I think, in the workplace. So I think where we've got some good practice going on, we can share that.
Yeah.
Just a couple more points that come through. As we begin to move away from a knowledge-based education system, what work is being done around softer skills support, that's all incorporated into the preparation for working life thing and looking at those employability and softer skills as well. And all the finer detail as to how we'll work towards that will be incorporated into the LSIP roadmap, but also we need to remember the employability skills framework and passport that Rod mentioned earlier, which we're hoping to launch by the next academic year. So once we start rolling that out, that's going to form quite a strong basis. And I think it's also probably worth mentioning with that the Skills England as a whole, because there are LSIPs across England that have actually been looking at developing their own employability skills passports and frameworks, all in the process of being launched. But now Skills England are looking at a national approach around this as well. And will we be sharing the slides after the event? Yes, we will. And I'll make sure there's supportive narrative with that as well, just to make sense of the slides where they're just like certain words on it as well.
I think what we also need to look at, because we've never really got stuck into sharing the results of the survey we did, some of which appears in this presentation, but I think there's more we can do with that. So we'll have a conversation about that and look at getting some more information out about what people are telling us they need, because I
It's
think
probably
that
worth
will
saying with that
inspire other
survey
people.
report, it will actually form part of the annexes as well with the main
Yeah,
LSIP. So it will be made available shortly.
yeah,
We've
and I
just
think we'll
been,
do some PR around that just to show the level of effort that went in, and also the quality of the responses that came back.
yeah.
I think
I
people
think
can learn a lot from that.
I think that's right, Phil. We have been fine tuning that report with the people that have been pulling it together to make sure it reflects, I think, the input and the work that we've had from our local training providers and employers. So it becomes very much a local document, but it's looking good.
Brilliant. I think that's it with the questions and comments.
Yeah, there's something there from Lucy about skills chat for health and social care. I mean that's it's very much a live issue, that, isn't it? So we can easily pick up on that and make whatever introductions you need.
Yeah.
And thanks for that additional point, Andy. I'll pick that up separately with regards to Ofsted inspection framework. Okay.
There's another one there from Carla.
With regards to CEC, we do, there's national conversations that take place with the CEC across all employer representative bodies, but we also do work closely with the Careers Hub locally that are CEC funded as well. An interesting comment there with regards to the AI labour forecast tool on digital transformation. The impact of digital transformation will move at a greater pace than we can model. And I think this is one of the key aspects as to why, with our roadmap for delivering LSIP 2.0, we need to be agile and responsive with it, and it will effectively be a live document so that we can change in accordance to how technologies are changing as well.
Just on that, I think it's worth mentioning. I think the last couple of presentations that I've been giving to, I think, colleges and to another setting is what we're starting to see is the rate of technological development around AI and digital is at a pace where we know that it's difficult for employers to keep on top of that, and therefore it's difficult for training organizations to keep on top of it. So I think what we're trying to do, or will do in the next phase, is look at how we can, what I call, quicken the lag between the development of technology and making sure that people are being trained upon it. So it's understanding how we can get all the collaborators, all the participants and stakeholders together when these things are being developed rather than waiting. I think if we get some good practice around that in the next year or two, I think it'd be fantastic. So I think that's something we've got to be very aware of. And we saw that with some of the development, particularly in the agri sector. Just getting the manufacturers in the same room as the students is great.
Okay, I think that's it. Phil, if we hand over to you to close.
Yes. So the what next slide, please, Hannah.
The slides seem to have come off the screen. There you go.
So, do you want to just take us through those dates, please, Hannah?
Yeah, so we've got the LSIP board taking place this afternoon, which will look at the current substantive draft for the LSIP 2.0 effectively to sign that off so that we can submit to Skills England later this week. We'll then be getting feedback from Skills England in relation to that draft at some point during mid-April. We're expecting it. We've also got our LSIP forum on the 20th of April at the Guildhall, which Rod mentioned earlier. And we'll also be working on the development of the roadmap for delivery. In May, we will then do the final submission for the LSIP, which will then go to Secretary of State for approval, which we're expecting in June. We've been told June, but it could also be July. But it'll be around that date that we should get that approval, and then the LSIP will be publicised and will go into delivery.
And the next slide, yeah.
And that's just details with regards to our next forum. The event details will be on our website later today. So please do keep an eye out, and I will also send invites out to everybody on this call as well.
So yeah, now just for me to thank Rod for a thorough review of where the LSIP has come from, and Hannah for a comprehensive update on where we're going. I hope you all found it helpful. The turnout was certainly impressive. I've been monitoring it throughout, and it's held up very well. If you have any questions or comments that you haven't had a chance to submit, you can still do that by using the email addresses on the next slide. And as we've all mentioned, we will be posting the recording of this on YouTube, and we'll let you know when that happens. Thank you all again for taking part. What I would say is that for all our technological advances, it is better to get people together in a room wherever possible. We've certainly seen that with the events which Rod mentioned earlier, our forums and workshops. So please come along to the forum at the Guildhall on the 20th of April if you possibly can. Hope to see you there. But meanwhile, get in touch with anything you need to know, and remember that it's your input that will help us build a better LSIP. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.